Welcome back to another episode of the Executive Code podcast. I'm here joined with a very special guest from the other neck of the woods over in America. I'm joined with Josselyne Herman-Saccio. I'm going to read out her official bio, let's put it this way, just before we get into the actual conversation that we're going to have here together. Josselyne is an author, CEO, community activist, excuse my pronunciation, and transformative coach with more than 30 years experience. She's also produced television shows, commercials, and feature films. She has raised close to $90 million for charity, and through her nonprofit has worked with UNICEF, the United Nations, and hundreds of leaders from more than 20 countries to cause systemic transformation. Josselyne has worked with over 200,000 people to empower them to fulfill their dreams now versus someday, and ultimately be unmessable with, no matter what life throws at them. Josselyne, thank you so much for joining us on the Executive Code podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And I'm looking forward to this conversation to see what we can learn for our listeners. And let's just have a really cool conversation.
Game on.
Tell me, give us a little bit of synopsis just for our listeners to have some background about yourself. So we have the official bio, let's put it that way, but we want to really know the real person behind the bio. Give us a little bit of synopsis on your journey and bring us up to date in terms of how did you come to do what you're actually doing right now?
Well, I would say, it all started when I was 11, actually, which is just a short time ago, 44 years ago. And my parents were separated, and my mother did a transformative seminar back in the 70s. And then my dad did it a year later, and they got back together. And They just celebrated 65 years together. So you can imagine, to me at 11, I was like, well, what did you guys just do? Because they were definitely getting divorced. And then something happened and they didn't. So I found out, and they let me do the children's version of that transformative seminar. And that began my journey in transformation. And, when I became like 19, I started to get trained to lead transformative seminars because I loved it so much. And I had had a dream since I was little to be a singer, but I kind of, decided at about 5 years old, in the infinite wisdom of 5, that you can't do your art as your career. And I lived inside of that like it was real. And when I was in another transformative seminar back, like when I was like 20, I saw that was not real. And that's one of the things that's so cool about transformation is, like, you just see something that you never saw before, and all of a sudden everything changes. Like everything. So in that moment, I realized I made that decision when I was 5. I gathered evidence for it my whole life, but it wasn't real. And within 3 months, I got a record deal and ended up having a #1 record, which was my dream come true. And in that period of time, I decided that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, is empower people to fulfill their dreams, not someday, but right now. And I'd started to develop this whole world called being unmessable with, which is not like being tough or don't mess with me. It's about not being thrown, like being able to create what you're creating, no matter what life throws at you, no matter what circumstance, because we all have circumstances that get thrown at us that aren't ideal, maybe. But how do you be who you are in those moments versus going down for the count or getting off track or, becoming smaller? Like that. So that was that's the Cliff Note version. Okay.
Okay. So there's 2 ways we can go in this conversation, because I can hear our listeners literally is saying, okay, so talk to us a little bit about the transformation side of things. What's key within that in terms of, okay, so I can literally hear listeners saying, I want some of that. How do I get transformed? What do people go through?
Yeah, well, there's so many different pathways to transformation now. Back in the 70s, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called the EST training, which is what my mother and father did, and I did when I was 11. That was like one of the first sort of seminars that was transformative in nature. Now, transformation is sort of a buzzword, and there are a lot of, roads to Rome, so to speak. But where I spent the last 30 years, I just actually retired from Landmark. I did the Landmark Forum, and then I ended up leading the forum and the advanced course for 30 years. So that is a very easy, effective way to get transformation in about 3.5 days. It's kind of like the fast food of transformation, rather than having to go up on a mountain for 16 years and contemplate reality. So it's a pretty effective way, and that's how I mostly got developed there, but there's a lot of different pathways to it. So it just depends on what resonates with you. And the work that I do with people, I call myself a transformative coach because I do that work one-on-one and in groups, to have people see something they never saw so that they can be who they always wanted to be.
Okay, so explain that a little bit more first. Let's drill down. Let's do a deep dive on that.
Sure, absolutely.
What does that look like for people?
Well, it could look like, I'll just give you an example from somebody that I have worked with over the years. I've worked with like a lot of people. So, I had somebody who was really not happy at their job. I mean, he was like burnt out, and that's something that people deal with a lot about job burnout. Even if you start gung ho, life sets in, and so he was definitely dealing with job burnout. And I worked with him to get to what was his vision in even taking this job in the first place. Like, what did he really want to fulfill on, other than a paycheck, which obviously could be a reason that somebody gets a job or takes a job. But even in taking a paycheck, it's like, okay, but what's your vision? And most people, their muscle for vision is weak because they're so busy dealing with what's right in front of them, the rent, the marriage, the kid, whatever it is. So vision takes a different muscle. And, I got him connected to, through a series of interacting with him and asking questions, what his real vision and what he really wanted to do, like his legacy, as it were, was to make a difference in the area of health and well-being. That's what his vision was for his life. Like, if he could leave anything behind, that's the difference he wanted to make. And he was working for a juice company selling juice, right? And it had turned into selling juice. So we worked to alter the context in which he was doing his job. So what I mean by that, I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume, have you heard the term, the context is decisive?
I haven't heard it put that way, but I kind of have an idea what it is. But so
yeah, well, I'll demonstrate it. And if I hold up this and I say, okay, the context is body part, what is it? I mean, you tell me what you see. A finger, right? This is not like a trick question. It's like, yeah, that's the in the context body part, that's what it is. But if I say, okay, the context is number, what is it?
1.
And if I say, let's think of another, the context is direction, what is it?
Up.
So now nothing's altered in reality, but the context is decisive in terms of how reality shows up for you. And what you do or say with reality is all contingent or, contingent on the context. So it's never your job or your wife or husband or your body or your bank account, or it's the context in which you're interacting with whatever you're interacting with. So he saw that the context of his job had turned into this sort of like getting through the day to get a paycheck sort of game. And we created this context that when he's selling juice, he's actually fulfilling on his vision to make a difference in the area of well-being. He tripled his sales within a month because he was no longer hawking juice. He was now empowering people's well-being, which is a game changer for people.
Yeah.
So that's like a little example. I mean, I don't know if that.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. What do you? Okay, let me jump back to your term in terms of unmessable-with.
And my favorite word in the world.
So
I love that word.
Tease that out a little bit more for us.
Sure. Well, a mentor of mine, his name is Richard Condon, who he's just an incredibly sourceful guy. I've known him for like 20, 30 years. About 20, 25 years ago, he said that word in passing. And I latched onto it, and it became like my mission is to empower people to be unmessable with, because I see that people sometimes, especially in coaching people, they want perfect circumstances, but that's not real. Like, that's not a real life. You and I and your listeners have a real life where their mother has a stroke, or they lose their job, or the stock market goes down and they lose their retirement, or things happen, in real life. So how do you be somebody who can be clear about their vision, be fulfilling their vision, who can make a difference with people, no matter where you are, no matter what life is throwing at you? So that's what I got interested in, because, if you find a way to get perfect circumstances, I'll certainly go do that. But I haven't found that in the last, 35 years of embarking in this whole world of self-development and transformation. So I got interested in that. And in the work that I do with people, we create an environment where everything that messes with them gets driven up to the surface. So I work with people on what they really want, like what is their vision, which is sometimes you got to work a little bit to get that because they're so busy with what's right here. And then once they have their vision, you can see pretty quickly what gets in the way of them fulfilling on that vision, like what stops them from taking certain actions or what has them take actions that are unproductive. And then I go to work on dismantling with them whatever messes with them, so that they can create an alternative to going down that road, that default road of being messable with. I mean, and it's not like complex things. It's normal stuff, but we're so used to it.
Yeah.
As human beings, it's like, oh, if somebody criticizes us, that's it, we're out for the count. Or if somebody questions, oh, now forget it. Now we're not confident in what we're, whatever it is, you know?
So it's dealing with those triggers. It's dealing with those hurdles that appear, they appear in everybody's life,
Everybody's life.
how we see them.
And I work with people who are really effective, successful people, and everybody's got stuff that throws them. You know, you could be managing billions of dollars, but then when your mother says, why'd you wear that sweater? You're off to the races, right? So it doesn't really matter what kind of person, and I've worked with all different kinds of people around the world, like amazing people, but there's stuff that you can't see. That only a coach can see. I mean, I have a coach, because if you really want to be somebody who masters life, right, you have to be able to see things you can't see, and you can't do it on your own.
Yeah, exactly. You have to. What that kind of leads me into kind of a segue into what is it that people do wrong? What is it that they get wrong? What's the mistakes that they make?
Well, I don't know if there's anything people do wrong. I think people do what makes sense to them. You know, it's not like they're messing up stuff for like on purpose. It's just something happens, and then they're triggered, as you said. That's a good word for it. I mean, I work with this one woman who I love. She's amazing, right? But she's got this kind of story about herself that she has to prove to people that she's smart. Now, she doesn't, but it's just like I had that story that you can't do your art as your career. You don't see the limits and the constraints as constraints. You see it as the truth. So if somebody asks her a question about the work she does, she immediately gets defensive. And that's what we've been breaking down in our work together. And now she's able to catch it, stop it, and choose something else, which is like a miracle for people, because mostly if you just get defensive, that's it. People get divorced over that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's I'm trying to think for our listeners in terms of what will be something that they could actually look at in their life right now at the moment.
Yeah.
See what's actually holding them back.
I think one of the simplest things I do with a lot of people is their calendar. I work with them on their calendar, because a lot of what messes with people ultimately is their relationship to their own word. Like if I give my word to you, Paul, like I'm going to meet you at whatever, 7 o'clock or whatever, there's a higher likelihood to that happening than if I give my word to myself that I'm going to work out tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So people's word is weak. Mostly to themselves. I mean, at least the people I work with are pretty effective at, keeping their word with other people. So I have them do an exercise where they actually create everything in their calendar. So they create when they're going to shower, when they're going to go shopping, when they're going to take out the garbage. I mean, like, it seems absurd, but it gives them the experience of creating their day versus reacting to whatever life is throwing at them in a day. So I have them do that for a period of time and start to see at the end of the day what they did accomplish that they said they were going to do, and what they didn't, and what threw them, what was more important than their word. So that brings up everything that messes with you, because whatever messes with your word is what messes with you everywhere. So that's like a good way for people that they could just do to, start to see what are those triggers, what does it look like, what are the body sensations when you're being messable with, in a messable with moment. Are you tight chested? Are you red, flushed, or you feel tense, whatever it is, because then you can start to catch it.
Yeah. So when people move those meetings, so even though they've given the word to themselves, and I love the example that you gave in terms of, okay, so when you're given that commitment to somebody else, you're going to make that commitment. You're going to meet it. You're going to literally. You're going to
Most people, some people maybe not even that. They don't even have that muscle, but that's okay. You know, it just means you can work it out. You know,
or they turn up late. Yeah.
Exactly.
All that. But when we're making appointments in our diary for ourselves, and we don't keep those appointments, what would you say, or what would be your advice in terms of what's the next step? What should they look at?
Well, let's just look with you, right? So is there anything in the last week that you said you were going to do that you didn't do?
No.
Nothing.
I'm quite, my wife gives out to me, or not gives out to me, but she says, Paul, you're the most disciplined individual I've ever come across.
Well, it might be that you're not writing down everything though. Some things you kind of leave to see if there's time, and some things you do like, so the stuff you schedule, you're going to do.
I'm going to do.
But then what don't you schedule that you just sort of deal with in life? That's where I would work with you. I would look at what you're not creating.
So that's
that you're just where you're reacting versus creating. Because a lot of being unmessable with is being a creator versus a reactor.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's play with this. So one thing that I will always put on the long finger is health. Anything to do with health, I'll always put on the long finger. So now, don't get me wrong, I'll do self-care, but self-care I'll classify it. This is the story we all tell ourselves.
I don't even know what self-care or the long finger is, but I'm just going to pretend I understand what you're talking about until I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So self-care for me is around me time. That's literally where I'm getting re-energized. I'm building my energy levels back up, and it's just literally just solo for me. Okay. When put on the long finger means is that it's when it comes to the do list, health always goes to the bottom of the list, because for me it's not important. I understand that it's important, but it's not prime. I'm trying to reach as many people as I possibly can, all that kind of, so that's my focus. So I'm hugely disciplined when it comes to work or clients or that kind of side of things. But when it comes to other stuff, an example being health, and I'm glad you pushed it on it. That will always be on the bottom of the list. I could set, so if I was to set a time in the diary to do anything from a health perspective,
exercise or whatever, you'd move that one. So this is perfect, because this is exactly what messes with you are your reasons or justifications, right? So that shows me that, and this is, by the way, not personal to you. This is pretty much what it is to be a human being. It's pretty much what it is to be a human being. But what happens is you give your word, but you qualify your word based on what you're giving your word to. So let me say a little bit more about that, right? So if you say you're going to work with a client, that is important. But it's not the word that's important. It's the thing you're giving the word to. So if the thing you're giving the word to is what justifies or qualifies the word, you will always be messable with, because there's always a reason that you can use to justify not keeping your word, and you have reasons to keep your word. So it's all the world of reason when you're focusing on the thing you're giving your word to. If what you're honoring isn't the thing, but your word itself, then everything matters. Then if you said to your wife you were going to take your garbage out at 7 o'clock, that freaking matters. It's like, okay, no, 7:05 is not it's my word, not the thing. Because the thing, you can have reasons to, reasons not to, blah, 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 blah. But if your word becomes what you honor, you're unmessable with.
Okay.
Uh-oh, silence. I'm nervous now.
I'm trying to relate it to what we just discussed in terms of, because I'm trying to literally go
with
back
exercise or something.
So I'm trying to okay, so is it what you're saying that our commitments that we give to somebody, or even certain things that we will do for ourselves, that word or that commitment is absolutely paramount for ourselves in certain contexts?
Well, I don't know if it is paramount, but I think that if what you're focusing on isn't, so let's say there's A is your word and B is the thing you gave your word to. If your focus is B, you'll always have an out.
Okay, now the penny's dropped.
Okay. But if your focus is A, and it's not to put yourself in prison by your word. I mean, you can also give a new word. Say, listen, Paul, I know I said I talked to you at 1:30, but can we make it 1:45? But that's my word, honoring my word.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
and creating a new word. So a lot of what I work with people is strengthening the muscle of their word, but not their word to something. It's their word. It's almost like with exercise with you, I would work with you. What I would focus on is creating a new context for your well-being, because
Yeah.
right now it occurs as like an afterthought, and it's like I have more important things to do. I want to make this difference. But if you created like, I hate working out. I mean, I hate it. I hate it. Like I hate it,
No,
right?
I hate it more. I hate it more.
Okay, well, we could over a pint talk about that, but I will tell you, I mean, it just occurred for me as, first of all, it's called working out. That's horrible. That's a horrible name for something. Who would want to do that? Right. And I have plaque on my heart, like I have a high calcium score and whatever. So it really is important that I exercise, and I understand that, and you understand the importance, but it doesn't translate to action because the context is decisive.
Yeah.
So I created a context for myself that every time I walk 10,000 steps or get on the treadmill for a half an hour, I'm melting plaque on my heart. And that occurs as an opportunity for me to do something, and then I created this game about being sexy. And so, like that occurs as interesting to me. So I create a context that gives me life to that thing. Now, whether or not I wake up wanting to, I rarely wake up wanting to work out, but if I were to, it doesn't matter, because my word is I'm going to go do it. Whenever I say I'm going to do it. So it's just like, and you've done things, and I'm sure everybody listening has done something that they didn't really feel like doing, and then the feelings followed.
Yeah.
So, you're either going to be somebody who honors their feelings, which you have nothing to say about, they just sort of happen to you, or you're going to honor your word, and then you're going to have some power in life. And whatever you honor will have the power in your life. Yeah. So if you honor your reasons will have power in your life. If you honor your word will have power. If you honor your thoughts and feelings and beliefs, then, I mean, that's why we have, in war, people are honoring their beliefs more than they honor human being. And now we have people killing each other all over the place because the beliefs are the thing that is all important.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. No, that's great, because that gives a absolute prime example of where people should officially work with you or work with a coach or work with somebody in order to actually get those transformations.
That's, whatever is going to support you in doing that, because like you are a great coach, and then you got this area. Everybody's got.
Yeah. And you have a coach, I have my own coach. It's literally you. The level of progress that you make is huge from that perspective. What are you working on right now at the moment? What are you creating in your life?
In my life or in my work, or both? I mean, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing, right? So I just rolled out a free 5-day program for people. Okay. Because I want people to be able to start to develop this muscle of being unmessable with. So what I call it is a dream source discovery program. So this would be something somebody would do, and it's free, and it's in email, so they can do it at their own pace, to develop a new place to come from other than those things that mess with you. So it's one thing to see what messes with you, but then what? You got to have someplace else to go to. So this is like an opportunity for people to develop that. So I just rolled that out, and then I'm doing a beta test of a 5-week program called the Foundation for Being Unmessable With. So I'm working with people. I'm right in the middle of it. In fact, tonight I have my session 3. So I'm excited because I'm sort of designing it with people, and I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and that's sort of like professionally. And then I'm working with my husband to develop a plan for the next 5 years to start to shift where we live, because we live in New York City, and then my parents live out in Long Island in the Hamptons, but not like the Shishi Hamptons in the Hamptons, I'm not fancy like that. And my dream is to live part-time in France, part-time in the Hamptons, and part-time in New York. So we're setting up that right now with our kids, and our youngest is finishing up high school. And my daughter just got married. And so we're kind of creating a whole new foundation for our family.
Oh, wow. Sounds amazing. Because one of the things that you have in your bio in terms of, it's about making your dreams a reality now. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that sounds so fascinating.
Yeah, that's why I created this beta course and that 5-day program, because most people, in fact, 98% of people die with their dreams intact.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah. I have had like every dream I ever had come true. So there's got to be a way to make that number less, right?
Mm.
So I work with people to disappear what I call someday. I mean, I don't just call that, everybody calls it that, because it's not a real day. It's not in any calendar. It is not real. And people live like that's a real time. Like, oh, I'm going to do it someday. I'm going to do that. So I, am really committed that people not only create a new place to come from in their life, like a new context,
Mm.
so that every day can be a fulfillment of their dream,
Right. Yeah.
but that they also create action steps to fulfill on specific goals, and that they're unmessable with in being able to fulfill on those goals. So that's how all my programs work. It's like, first, get clear about the dream so you can be bringing that to life every moment at Starbucks or with
Mm.
your wife or with your, boss or employees or whatever, and come up with actions to fulfill on whatever dream it is. I mean, I got that record deal not from some woo-woo thing. I got it from actions.
Yeah.
I started to introduce myself as a singer, and then all of a sudden somebody called me and said, I heard you're a singer and we're putting this thing. I mean, it's not mysterious,
It's not rocket science, no, but that's the thing that people miss. You got to take action.
Yeah, well, because they have so many reasons
Yeah.
why it's not happening, or fears or justifications. That's why that whole thing about the reasons, about the
Yeah.
thing you give your word, if you can disappear that,
Yeah.
reasons disappear, and all of a sudden you're left in action on what is important to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a look at the stories. The stories
Yeah.
ourselves, huh?
Totally. Totally. The stories, you end up mucked in this whole world of stuff that isn't real. I mean, I have this one woman in the course that I'm doing, literally after the first week, her dream was it happened to be with music. She wanted to release her first album, right? And she called me and she's like, oh, but this and that and all these reasons. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You can release an album today on Spotify or whatever. I mean, there's so many ways you could do, but she couldn't see it because she was so busy with, well, first I have to get the artwork, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this. I was like, none of that is real. So put all of that to the side. Now, actually, what would have to happen? So she has a scheduled date of November 3rd. She's releasing the album.
Wow. Wow. Brilliant.
Isn't that killer? It's great.
Absolutely is. Absolutely is. As we come close to the end of this particular interview, if there was one thing that you feel could make a significant difference for our listeners, what's the one golden nugget that you would share with them?
Well, I think the whole thing about reasons and word, because if you look at life, you can either live life and have your actions come from reasons, reasons to do something, reasons not to do something, whatever, or you can have it come from your word. And that's two different experiences of being alive. I mean, action is action, whatever action, your abs don't care for your reasons to go to the gym. Your abs will respond to the sit-ups, whether you have a good reason or not.
Yeah.
So the world of action is just kind of like right now, but then where is your life going to come from? And this one is like a reaction, and then this one is a creation. So, if you want to be somebody who creates life, you got to exercise the muscle of your word. And I would do the free thing I have, because it really will support you in creating a new place to come from, a new context, and they can get that on my website, the art of being unmessablewith.
Let's share those details with our listeners. What is the best way that they can get in contact with you and get a hold of that free course that you have?
Well, the art of being unmessablewith.com is my website. So that has everything, right? But I'm on all social media. I'm on, whatever those things are, so you can reach me. I'm pretty reachable. I'm not hiding. And if you want to get that free thing just directly, not even go to the website, you don't want to know anything else I'm doing, that's fine. It's giftfromjoss.com. And you can go right to the Dream Source Discovery thing, and you'll just get emails for 5 days. And you don't have to do it in 5 days because it's kind of a lot of work. You can space it out because you'll have all the emails and you can just click on the links.
Wow. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the link in our show notes.
Cool.
Therefore, it's there for our listeners, because you never know, our listeners could be in the gym doing the jog. So they don't have a pen and paper with them. So the links are going to be in the show notes, guys. They're going to be there for you. Josselyne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us today and sharing your information and sharing your knowledge and sharing your wisdom and making a difference for people, because that's what it's all about.
So happy for the opportunity. Thanks for having this platform so that it could happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Listen, guys, there's a lot that has been shared in the episode today. Go back over it again because there's a lot of gold nuggets in that episode. Please re-record or go back over it again. I was trying to what's the word that we can actually say?
Re-listen.
Re-listen. That's the one. That's exactly the one we're looking for. Guys, re-listen to the episodes several times because there's a lot of gold nuggets in there. Why not sign up to Josselyne's course and again help you on your journey to getting further to make your dreams a reality. Guys, until next time, I wish you every success.